Robert Taliaferro, The Immigrant by Sherry Park. While doing DNA research on our wood ancestors, one name came up over and over. The name is Taliaferro, which is often pronounced Taliaferro. I followed this line until I came to Robert, who was the first Taliaferro to immigrate to Virginia. He married Catherine Debnam in 1654. Little is known about Catherine. She was born in either England or Virginia. They were friends and neighbors of Major Lawrence Smith and his wife Mary Debnam, sister of Catherine, and also John Catlett and his wife Elizabeth. Their children intermarried, so they are all our ancestors. They lived in the Chesapeake Bay area of Virginia. You will have to take my word for it, but this is the record of Robert's baptism in 1626 in Stepney, England. Stepney is about 5 miles from London. Robert's father was a yeoman who had a small estate, so when Robert left for America, he was a gentleman. These are pictures of St. Dunstan's Church, an Anglican church built in Stepney in the 1400s. Robert was almost 21 years old when he sailed for America 2 days after his father's death, leaving his sister Anne to handle their affairs in England. Their ancestor, Bartholomew, was born in Venice, Italy. He moved to England and became a denizen or inhabitant of London in 1562. The name of Taliaferro is an old name, possibly dating back to the time of Julius Caesar. Catherine and Robert first settled on the Ware River and later moved to the Rappahannock River. Robert Taliaferro received a land grant for immigrating. His land happened to be next to the Lee property where the ancestors of Robert E. Lee were living. Their descendants also intermarried with the Lee family. Of course, the immigrants from Europe were met by Native Americans. Sadly, more than 90% of the Native Americans in America had died of plague, smallpox, and measles before our ancestors arrived. The Taliaferro family became wealthy and eventually had 3 homes. When Robert Taliaferro acquired Taliaferro's Mount on the Rappahannock River, it was the highest point in the area and had been used by Indians as a lookout point. At first, the new settlers got on well with the Indians, and some even talked of intermarriage, as in the case of Pocahontas and John Rolfe. John Rolfe was the first English settler to grow a sweet form of tobacco and send it to Europe in 1614. By 1670, 1/2 of all English men smoked tobacco. This is the label of one brand of tobacco that was popular in London. Tobacco was not easy to grow. The plants had to be grown from seeds in a cold frame, set out, weeded, tasseled, harvested, and cured. All this work was done by hand. Each plant had to be tended every day and checked for tobacco worms. Plantation owners needed more workers. Robert and his friend Lawrence Smith paid the passage of workers from Europe and the Caribbean in 1666. In return, they received more land. Both black and white indentured servants came to Virginia. At first, they worked together and intermarried. Gradually, a class system formed in which our white ancestors held all the advantages. In 1654, John Casor of Virginia became the first legal slave in America. Competition for land and resources became more acute as more settlers arrived. These are the Native American tribes in Virginia in 1600. Indentured servants were released after they served their time, but were given land that no one else wanted. There were no large cities, just a series of plantations with ports along the rivers. About 1653, a young lawyer named Nathaniel Bacon moved to the Virginia colony. He bought a plantation. He complained bitterly about conflicts with the Indians. Several others also complained to the governor, William Berkeley, who was slow to take action against various Indian tribes. Nathaniel Bacon became the first American rebel. Some consider Bacon's rebellion to be a precursor to the Revolutionary War. He gathered an army of black and white indentured servants and attacked different Indian groups. Then he attacked the wealthy planters. Eventually, he attacked and burned Jamestown. The conflict went on for several years. Robert Taliaferro was assigned by the governor to gather an army and fight back. He led several hundred men against the rebels. Bacon was eventually defeated and died from an illness in 1676. Robert Taliaferro and his friend Lawrence Smith have no houses left standing, but they do have a historical marker. It tells about the fort that was erected to defend against the Indians. Robert Taliaferro died sometime after this battle. Several dates have been suggested. He and his wife had at least 7 children. Their son John is our ancestor. He was the first person to bear the name of John Taliaferro in America. He is also called the Ranger because he was a colonel in the Caroline Company of Rangers. He was a member of the House of Burgess. He was both a sheriff and a justice of Essex County, Virginia. He married Sarah Smith, the daughter of Lawrence Smith and Mary Debnam. They had at least 11 children and were also the ancestors of Meriwether Lewis. The Taliaferros had friendships with many leaders in early America. George Wythe was a scholar and a lawyer who had married a Taliaferro woman. Wythe urged his former student and friend Thomas Jefferson to see what he could discover about the name when Jefferson traveled to Italy. Jefferson later reported to the Wythe family that the name was of Italian origin, and he made a sketch of the coat of arms. Here is the sketch that he sent in the letter. This is another one of the coat of arms for the family. There are no known pictures of this family, but they are well known for their contributions to the history of Virginia.